and lesbians have been serving as foster parents and legally adopting children in Illinois for decades. But tonight, one Chicago couple says they were turned away by a faith-based adoption agency because of their sexual orientation. That agency freely admits they will not adopt to gays. So is it a case of blatant discrimination or religious freedom? Mark Saxamari now with an investigation that has both government and civil rights leaders scrambling to settle the law.
When Fred Steinhauer and Matt Nailett show off the Lakeview home they've shared for 7 years.
As you can see, starting to get ready for Christmas.
It's clear that family is important to them.
That's my grandfather that passed away.
Family really is something you have to define for yourself as life goes along.
But this couple, who are legally wed in Canada, never really considered having kids.
Oh yeah, get out of here.
But then Matt began working with a teenage runaway group and met a 15-year-old kid that we'll call Kenny.
He was not just a runaway, he was a missing kid.
Removed from his biological family because of unsuitable living conditions, Kenny has been a ward of the state for 7 years, bouncing between foster and group homes.
He ran away from a group home because he was being bullied by residents of the home, and he decided it was in his best interests to be on the street.
Kenny is also now coming to terms with his sexuality. He, too, is gay.
We said we should try and figure out what we can do to help him out.
Kenny was in the care of Lutheran Child Family Services, and Fred and Matt began the process with the agency to become foster parents. They say they passed background checks, went through a home inspection, and met with Kenny's therapist, his caseworker, and state child welfare agents.
I made it very clear, crystal clear at the beginning of the meeting that Matt and I were a gay couple, and never once was it ever mentioned that our sexual orientation was an issue.
But then, just as they were about to start child development and guidance classes required for foster parents, the orientation instructor handed them this policy statement.
She's like, you need to read this, and I don't want to waste your time, and have a nice day.
The LCFS policy says the agency, quote, will not develop or license adoptive or foster care families who identify themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or questioning.
Devastated. Just like my brain just like hit the floor, you know?
When Fox Chicago called LCFS for an explanation, President and CEO Gene Svibakin told us his agency must uphold the doctrines, practices, and beliefs of the Lutheran Church. And church policy, he said, does not condone same-sex adoption. We then asked leaders of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services for clarification, and they said the Illinois Human Rights Act actually exempts religious-based adoption agencies from the anti-discrimination rules every other agency must follow.
Well, that is not true.
In fact, according to the senior staff attorney for the civil rights organization Lambda Legal,
and that is contrary to Illinois law, but it's also a terrible wrong done to kids.
Lambda provided Fox Chicago with several similar state and federal court rulings that it says set a clear precedent.
The state has an obligation to make sure that those receiving state funds are not discriminating.
So we checked with the state comptroller's office and found Lutheran Child and Family Services received $19.9 million in state funding in fiscal year 2010. According to DCFS, 2 other adoption or foster care agencies, Catholic Charities and Evangelical Child and Family, also cite religious reasons for excluding gays. And between them, they received more than $23 million in state funding in fiscal year 2010.
This would be Kenny's room.
Kenny is now set to be transferred to a different child welfare agency, one that does allow gay adoption. And Fred and Matt have once again begun the application process to become his guardians.
The real reward comes when he says, I think I'm now part of a family again. When he gives you a hug,
calls us dads.
As a result of our investigation, DCFS has met with attorneys from Lambda Legal, the governor's office, and the attorney general's office to begin to resolve what DCFS calls, quote, these very complex legal issues. Our latest calls to Lutheran Child Family Services for comment have gone unanswered, but it's interesting to note their policy denying gays the right to adopt has now been removed from their website. Robin.
Well, taking it from your website is one thing, but has the actual policy changed, or will someone have to go through the entire process to find out?
According to folks we know at DCFS, they're calling this unsettled law. Lutheran Child Family Services won't return our calls to clarify any further at this point.
All right. And Kenny, the teenager?
That's the thing. There aren't too many couples lining up to adopt 15-year-old teen runaways who are identifying as gay. This kid has been let down numerous times throughout his entire life, and he's finally got a couple who wants to help him.
All right. Well, we'll see how that works out. Thank you, Mark.
After a break, fast food marketing, our kids just can't get away from it. And what a weekend for Dr. Oz. We'll talk about his massive house call here in Chicago.